Connecting Arizona. Live from the 12 News studios at 200 East Van Buren. This is 12 News at 10.
We've seen these mass shootings before, unfortunately, and we'll probably see them again. We're just a year removed from the Jared Loughner rampage in Tucson, and a couple of years before that, there was Virginia Tech. Are there warning signs that can be spotted before it's too late? Joining us tonight is Dr. Michael Yasinski, a board-certified psychiatrist. Doc, thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure, no problem.
We're hearing a lot of the things that we hear about many of the mass shooters, and I want to get your take to see if there's a commonality here. Very quiet, they say this guy was, always kept to himself, kind of isolated. Profile the typical shooter that we see in these types of things for me, if you could.
Right, I think there's definitely similarities looking back to the Jared Loughner case to some degree. He classically fits what, these people tend to be very quiet throughout life, and it sounds like he's been isolating more and more, and that's typically what we call the prodrome to something of a psychotic illness such as schizophrenia, and he is the right age at this point where a first psychotic break is likely, and again with Jared Loughner's case, same kind of thing. He was a relatively quiet person a lot of the time, and the same thing happened. So I think the prodrome of being extremely quiet and isolated is often precedes behavior like this.
All right, well, doctor, look, what kind of triggers do we have that take someone who's isolated and quiet and then causes them to snap to the point where they could actually act out on something like this?
Right, so I've seen this a lot of times, not to this extent, but what really stood out to me was he seemed to be doing okay when he lived in San Diego, and relatively recently had a move, which is a significant stressor. He was in a PhD program, which, speaking from someone who went to grad school, long hours, little sleep, very stressful environment. And that's often, if not usually, the trigger for bringing on this initial, what we call psychotic illness or loss of touch with reality, delusions, hallucinations, that kind of thing. So he did fit the bill as far as a big stressor over the last 6 months to a year, and that often puts people in this road to having a psychotic illness.
And doctor, finally, if you're a family member of someone who suffers from a mental illness, are there any common warning signs that you could put out for family members to look for if they have someone who's in treatment for a disorder like this that might lead them to believe that they're ready to snap or do something violent?
Yeah, in almost all of cases of any kind of psychotic illness, if that is in case what this is, people really start to isolate. Typically dropping out of school, work, losing touch with their family is so common, and sometimes people just put it off as not being a big deal. But I think as a family member or friends, this should really lead to stepping up and really getting involved in someone's life if they're close to you that starts to withdraw, because you never do know. Sometimes it's nothing, but oftentimes it leads to something like this, which is horrific. So.
All right, Dr. Michael Yasinski, thanks for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks.